people. I have finished a book. I'm not working right now. I'm employed, but there just hasn't been any work, so that's why I'm finishing so many books. I finished this one, Courtesans and Fishcakes. I did not finish this all at once. It's only a 315-page book, which normally would take me 2 days or something. There was at least 5 times that I picked this up, read some, put it down, read something else, went 2 weeks without picking it up again. I don't know when I started this thing. And in some previous videos, I did some bitching about this book, about how shitty it was, and I'm finding out that it's probably not all that shitty of a book. The Consuming Passions of Classical Athens. I've read about Greece before. I've read about the Peloponnesian War. Of course, I've read about, Thermopylae. And I would love to get a book about Marathon. Everybody seems to ignore Marathon and just look at the Spartans at Thermopylae. But Marathon was just as important, if not more important. I've read about some other stuff with Greece and the Romans taking over Greece. And it's pretty interesting. But the fact of the matter is, this is probably not a shitty book. This is probably something that I'm not ready for. And I'll get to more of that later. There is a few notes in this book. This is a fairly new book, written in 1998. The author is using BCE and CE. And I just made a note here that's 20 years ago, 1998. It's more than 20 years ago. I thought I was all on top of the game because maybe 5 years ago, I was aware of the change. There's no more BC and AD. That's old hat. But this is 20 years ago. I didn't know about that 20 years ago. In the beginning of the book, I was all eager to read this, and just some weird things. They said that Athenians carried loose change around in their mouth. That's a little bit weird. They were pretty smart people, didn't they? Know what a fucking pocket was? There's all kinds of stuff in this book where he talks about them. He just mentions in an offhand manner that they carry change around in their mouth. But he does not expound on that. He doesn't say anything else about it. And he gets very into words and their meanings and how their meaning changes over the years and what was behind the meaning. And I just made a note here about, it's a word called opson, O-P-S-O-N. And opson means a condiment. Later on he stops using that word and he uses the word relish. It's not food, it's something that you enjoy with the food. And a whole lot of this book is it's dedicated to the Athenians. They're just obsessed with each other's habits. Does this person eat too much? Does this person drink too much? Is this person a homosexual? Is this person a top or a bottom? Does this person, they go into the different types of prostitutes in Athens. There was little boys, there was men, there was like 4 or 5 different kinds of women, with the hetaira, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, the hetaira being the most expensive, and all the way down to flute girls, and I go a long ways without another note. This is on page 19, and the word opson actually changes its meaning. That's on page 19. I go to page 238 before I get another note. I was reading this thing in like 30-page snatches, and The front of the thing, I don't know if that's going to show up. It's a portion of a mosaic, a pretty famous mosaic called the Unswept Hall. And what it is there's a bunch of fish bones and legs from crustaceans and snail shells and all kinds of shit there that they don't even know what it is. That's unidentified. Another big part of this book was these little private banquets that wealthy Athenians would throw for each other, where they would eat and then they would start drinking, and what it means about who throws the banquet, and what it means about even the size cup that they're drinking their wine out of. Things that I'm completely unfamiliar with. And here's a book where I try to explain that. The book is not telling a story. The author is assuming that the reader already knows the story, and he gives you the deeper meaning behind. Not really even events, but politicians' relationships to each other, while actual events, take a side note. And some of the events that do get mentioned in this book, I know about them. They talk quite a bit about the Peloponnesian War, not so much about the war itself, but about the Athenians decided to send a bunch of ships and an army to Sicily and to lay siege to Syracuse, and it was just a disaster. It was a stupid idea to begin with, and the only reason that they mention this a lot in the book is because there was speeches pro and con before this invasion was launched, and speeches take up a great part of this book. Apparently, a lot of the speeches are still extant. They still exist, and you can look at those speeches. I got the idea from the cover of this that this would give an idea about day-to-day living in Athens. It does a little bit, but day-to-day living for much more wealthy people. I read a book called Empires and Barbarians. I bought that book 10 years ago, read the first 300 pages of it. It was like a 900-page book. Read the first 300 pages of it, bitching and moaning about what a shitty book it was. I picked it up again this year after I had read numerous other books about what they call the Age of Migration in Europe. And the Age of Migration coincides with the destruction of the Western Roman Empire. And, I was amazed at what a wonderful book that was, the last 700 pages. Only because I was ready for it. 10 years ago, I was not ready for that. Second paragraph. I'm just going to read a sentence from this. Petronius' satire on the dinner of Trimalchio in the Satyricon illustrates this shift nicely. Okay, that's all the information I get on Petronius or the Satyricon. I didn't read the Satyricon, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about there. This book is for people that have already read things like the Satyricon. Of course, I've heard of it before, but I haven't read that. He also talks about another author. Maybe the guy is even an archaeologist or an anthropologist. His name is Foucault, and he's always comparing what he thinks to what Foucault has written in another book. I've never read Foucault. I don't know who the hell Foucault is, so I guess that's about it. So, maybe if I would have waited another 10 years, I would have probably enjoyed this book more. But as it is, I finished it. I learned little tiny things here and there. I'm going to put this on the shelf somewhere. I actually have to build a shelf because I don't have any room. The last book I piled on top of other books, and that just looks like shit, you know. Not that there's that many people coming in my house and looking at my books, but I'd love to have them on display. Thanks for watching, people. Everybody have a good day.